Hello, my name's Kayleen and I welcome you to my backyard urban food forest, growing food forest, in progress food forest. And today I would like to share with you quite a lengthy video because I have stacks to show you, but it's my urban backyard that I've started to create a microclimate and a little sanctuary, if you like, and a place where we are growing quite a lot now, with very limited resources to start with and limited time, to be honest with you. There's been times where I've had to let it go. So you'll see the good, the bad, the ugly, and the great. But I'm pretty pleased with where I'm at this stage. I would have liked to have been further along, but gee, I walked around today sharing all the parts of my garden with you in this recording, and I've stopped and thought, gee, I'm so glad I started this journey. And I really do hope it encourages you to sow some seeds, start even small, and start working on land that you have. What's that? We've got some bird hanging around. Land that you have, and take advantage of it. We have to date saved so much money on food. Some of the things took a little bit of investment to set up, particularly the chickens. But the garden itself, it's going to pay for itself in a very short time. And it is really worth it because not only are we creating a system where there'll be bounty for a very long time, but it's the nutrients, what we're putting in our bodies just doesn't compare to what you pull out of the supermarkets. And some of the things that you grow, like particularly things like tomatoes, there's certain things that you eat from the backyard that don't taste anything like what you buy in the shop. They're just chalk and cheese, and literally chalk and cheese. So it's totally worth doing it, and working out what grows well for you, what doesn't, what's easy, what's hard. I'm heading down that track to know a little bit more now what is low maintenance, what's high maintenance, and and tasting different things. I've tried so many different things already, and putting in some new things this year. And it's really good to try these things because there's things I'm eating on a regular basis now that I never touched before. I didn't know I would like it, or I'd tried it from the supermarket. It was disgusting, and I've pulled it out of my garden and gone, oh gee, it's nowhere near as bitter as the supermarket, or it tastes very different. So it's totally worth it. I'm going to move on and show you the all the little pockets around my home that I've taken advantage of and tried to grow in, and places that I would never thought I would be able to grow anything, and they're growing. Okay, come and have a look. So this was my wall garden, which isn't irrigated, so it has to be hand watered, and it's under the eave, so it doesn't get water unless you water it. So it had a bit of a setback when we went away for a few weeks, and it was quite warm, and my minder didn't watered it once, and so they struggled. But things are still growing, I think, because there's some nice worm castings in there, and it's kept some things going. But they are high maintenance unless they're, out in the weather to get natural rain or irrigated. Nonetheless, the peppers are still going. Oh, these are very mild. There's beautiful flavour on those. And they've been going for months. Even though there's a bug that's having a good go at it, I assume it's snails getting up and waking right up now. We've got a lot of slugs in the garden now, so I'm going to have to get on top of that. But the strawberries are all starting to flower and fruit, and part of me is tempted to put them in the ground somewhere so they can really take off, but it's a catch-22. You put them in the ground and then things can get to the fruit a bit easier. So I think I'll let them go for a bit longer. I'll feed them well and watch the water on them, and I might divide them up after this season. So down here, there's a bit of weeding to be done in this area. Not a great deal, fortunately, because of the mulch, but some pretty persistent grasses and weeds. But in amongst there, I do have a pigeon pea. Now I had 3, and I think we're down to 1 somehow. But there's 1 just here surviving. So this will bush up and grow into a bush and fill this area. So when I weed that, I need to kind of mulch it a bit better and let that grow in there. And I've got a little chili here that's it's been knocked, but it'll come back. I might even put this one in the ground now. We've got, what have we got in here? Mint. I don't think there's much else in there but mint. And I think this is feverfew. I'm not sure if I planted chamomile there or feverfew. Maybe somebody here might know. If you know, post in the comments. I didn't tag it by the looks. Oh, hang on, what have we got here? No, that's the Alstroemeria. So this is a little dwarf white Alstroemeria, just there for flowers. And I just love them. This is the pomegranate. My pomegranates, I did better this time than I did last time growing them. The first time I noticed them growing, and they weren't taken by possums, I think, they all split. This time I got some fruit off it. I didn't end up eating much of it because they were small and it was a bit fiddly, but instead they were used because I used them for painting. So they're drying on my shelf, and they look really lovely as an ornament. Down here, this is the wild strawberry, which my grandson just absolutely loves, and by the looks of it, somebody else loves. That's pretty big for the wild strawberry, that size. They grow fairly small, although these might be a bit bigger. They look pretty lush here. They grow small, the berry, but they're very sweet, and they're quite prolific. So they're great as a ground cover. I've resolved to letting some things that spread quickly in, rather than just be fighting with the weeds that I've got, because I've got oxalis, which is persistent down here. This is edible. It has a nice lemon flavour. I actually like it. The chooks like it, but it's so persistent. You pull it out and it seems to be still more there. I have got on top of a lot of it, but I'm still fighting that. The geranium just goes boom. I will eventually replace that with something that I can eat. And my camellia here was a nice little protective spot for birds. I've actually got a nest in there. I didn't realise until I had cut it back, unfortunately, and kind of exposed them. There wasn't anything in there, but I think the birds have been a bit reluctant to go back in there because it's a little bit too exposed. I haven't been able to grow anything under it, and I even put comfrey in there, which grows everywhere but has struggled, and I think something's eating it by the looks. It's in there, there's a leaf, but it's struggling there. So I've got a few pest issues here. I've had trouble with scale. It's very damp, it's just this spot. So I've put other things in to try that. So I've got a currant in there. I've got some walking Egyptian onions, and I cut this out because I was told it was a weed, but I'm not sure if it is. It's grown back. My broad beans are going gangbusters here. This is probably the happiest broad beans I've got.
So they're doing well. I need to start thinking about picking some of them so they keep growing, because that is the biggest one I've had. You can see I've had trouble with aphids in other areas with the broad beans. They, oh my goodness, do they multiply quickly, and I've tried hosing them off, tried a little bit of soap, which I'm reluctant because I want to keep everything natural, but I'm kind of hoping that the areas that I had it are sacrificial, and hopefully I get more ladybirds in the long run, and it kind of, the ecosystem takes over. Now, this is my beautiful orange tree that my son-in-law and daughter put in the Kris Kringle because they thought, I know who might want to win that Kris Kringle, and I did. And that looks like it's ready to give some fruit. Aren't the flowers pretty? It's pretty in itself, isn't it? And down under here, I grew some silver beet, which is trying to go to seed now, which my husband said he loved, and I'm not partial to it, and he hasn't eaten much of it, so it's kind of just been left. And there's, hiding in there, we've got some beetroot. So I'm trying to fill in the understories so the weeds don't have room and the veggies kind of fill everything out. So that's the thing I really need to focus on, is closing those gaps. I had too many open gaps, and that's what happens when you have too many open gaps. The grass or the weeds just take over. This, my friends, is elephant garlic. Look how big it is. Oh, look, I've got escape growing. So I don't know. They really haven't been in there that long. Well, you know, when you think of garlic takes forever to grow. These have grown pretty quickly, but they're more like an onion than garlic anyhow. They grow huge bulbs. So I've planted elephant garlic there. I think that's, I'd have to look up my book, but I think that's the same at the back there. They get more water. They're up higher than those. So these are a bit taller. Now, these are my little pots of this is mostly chocolate mint, which I just love with my coffee. If you haven't seen my video on how to use it with coffee, go check it out. It's easy and it's just so good. I was devastated when I harvested it all and dried it and then left the jar of it on the bench, and my son tipped it out thinking it was, I don't know what he thought. But all my harvest was gone. So I haven't had the chocolate mint coffee for a while. And now, finally got some plants coming back. So this one's ready. I can start having chocolate mint coffee again, which is amazing. It even smells like mint chocolate. It's beautiful. I've got some baby walking Egyptian onions growing there from the little top sets, little bulbs that grow at the top. And these comfreys are doing okay in the pots. Now, this was originally a potato bed, and I harvested the potatoes out of it. It didn't do too great. A lot of my garden, being young and not having, being full of weeds and malnutritioned and all the rest of it, have taken a little while for it to kick in. This should be really good soil now. And so planting into this, I should have more success. In this area too, I had a lot of trouble with snails in particular. But underneath my studio building, just back there, resides, or did reside, I'm hoping they're still there, a pair of blue-tongued lizards. And they come in and clean up a lot of the snails. So I definitely don't want to be using poison. I just want nature to look after my garden and not be buying those sort of things and putting it into my soil and up into my plants. I've moved a blueberry here too. I've got a few different blueberries. It is a bit tricky planting them outside here. I have had the rosellas. The rosellas just love our yard. And when they come in, what they do is they cut branches, like they cut the ends off. They chew here and drop the whole end, even when the berries aren't ready. So as soon as I see berries, well, that's what I've had happen. Now, recently, I do have plants loaded with berries, small plants, probably a bit bigger than this one, loaded with berries that, and I'll show you, that they haven't touched. But I think because there's been weeds grow in amongst it and other plants that have grown in amongst it, and it's kind of disguised it. And they haven't noticed it, and they've gone for other things. So I'm not sure what they've gone for. I haven't noticed a lot of damage. So as the garden grows and you get more in there, and if it's more foresty, even if it is weeds, sometimes it can benefit you. I don't know, it probably gives more places for the predatory insects as well. So it seems to be, a nuisance to have all these weeds, but at the same time, it can have its advantages. So I'm very happy with those broad beans. Incidentally, some of those are growing in a pot behind that little cage. I've put the cage there to help stop them falling over. We've had some pretty strong winds, and we do get strong winds, but you can see some of them just grown straight through, and I haven't got to it. So over here, a lot of vacant garden space, and mostly because I didn't plant into this because we've had new fencing. All our fences all the way around were falling over, and one by one we've been having to replace them. The neighbours have wanted to replace them, and so that's been something we've had to deal with. So when the fences come in, they don't really care about your garden. So I didn't want to plant too much into here. I moved things like that blueberry so that it wouldn't get crushed, and the currant that you saw earlier, ideally I would have preferred it on this side, but better alive than not at all. So there's not a lot here. Now this is a very wet spot in the garden. The water drains down and that gets incredibly wet, like very, very wet. And when I was thinking about the vegetable garden or the edible food forest system, I thought, what better plant to put in there than a banana? Now bananas just take up so much water, and if they're in a moist spot, they're very happy. Now, this was a little plant not that long ago. This trunk, I don't think I could put my hand around it actually. No, I can't get my fingers around it. It is growing very happily there. So that's proof. I watered it when I first planted in, and I haven't really had to touch it. It is mulched, which is great for it, but it's a bit, it's winter damaged too, which happens to the bananas anyhow here. And Melbourne can get like below zero, but it's bouncing back. You'll see the leaf here it's very happy. So this will be nice here, it will be happy here, and hopefully I'll be able to have bananas. Over here, a bit more, I think this is I'm not sure, I think this is just garlic. I don't think this is elephant, I'd have to look it up. It's either elephant garlic or garlic here. Over here, this is a very weedy spot too. I had the sedum, this succulent growing that keeps on growing, keep pulling it out. I use it in the compost and keeps feeding my compost, but keeps growing. I've got a thornless blackberry in there that's struggled, but it looks like it's going to take off now. I don't think they like it too wet. I think that's why. But with the banana there, it might be a bit happier and it might be a good balance. What have we got here? Who's been here? Somebody's been there. yucky. Let's just, not sure, but let's get rid of that because this is a plant you eat. This is kangkong. Likes to be also in a moist spot. So I used a pot that gets waterlogged and it was just sitting there doing nothing. And I thought, I know, I'll use it for water or swamp loving plants. And so I put kangkong in there and I thought I'd lost it. It grew a bit and then I thought I'd lost it, but it's come back. So I could probably eat some of that in there. Now coming up here, all this area I can plant into now. And I have selected this because we've cleared the shade out of here a bit now. I'm going to put some corn in here and some pumpkins probably so that it can sprawl over this area because I'm not ready to use it all still. But it can sprawl over this area, block out the light for all these weeds that are trying to persist and kind of look after it for me for a while. Because we don't walk through here, it can just go nuts in here. There's plenty of room and the corn can grow up here where it's getting all the sunlight, it's full sun, and I'm growing sweet corn this year. I grew the popcorn, the coloured popcorn last year, and it was just gorgeous. But this year I want to grow corn that we can eat. Okay, so here we go here. This was a freebie and it is an avocado. I suspect grown from a seed, so not grafted. Probably too old to graft now. Pot bound. My husband's going to put it out for me soon. We're going to also put into this area here to replace this ornamental pear eventually. So I'm going to let it grow near it, and then when it gets big enough, we're going to allow the shade from this ornamental pear to shade it a bit because it doesn't like too much sun. Well, that's what I've found with my other avocado. And when it gets going, we'll probably take that out. As beautiful as it was filling up this whole space and this whole potential growing area was too wet and too shaded to grow much at all. So that's this area here. I've also got a little thing that I haven't put together, which will be fun. I've got some more mints growing under there in pots. I started growing some silver beet in here, which have been incredibly slow. Really slow. So I put in some orchid Egyptian onions, which will pretty much grow anywhere it has water. And it's not actually sitting in water. That's protected from the water. The water goes into this container and drains through. But these I've got here because I want to do a nice tiered garden in that. So this will be lifted up and then another pot will be lifted up, and I've got this to put in the centre, and I'm going to do a nice French style tiered garden here to look really pretty and just give a little bit more privacy into that area. Now at the front, in a gravelled area it was hard, compact, crappy soil, I didn't think much would grow. Again, near an eave, but it gets weather on it from the side mostly. I do water it. I've tried a few seeds that haven't taken off, but it's starting to mulch down again, so things are starting to be happier when I put it here. Again, the walking Egyptian onions and the wild strawberries, and I can show you one because there's one here. See? Now sometimes they're white. That one is ripe. They're kind of white, and in the winter, in the really cold months, these things still give me or my grandson really, he eats most of them, gives me fruit. Now, even though it's like that, it's soft and still sweet. So they don't necessarily have to be really red. They do go very red and sometimes very deep red, just depending, but that's usually the warmer weather, but in the cold they're lighter. So it's a type of alpine strawberry, I'm pretty sure. I'm not exactly sure, but they are just great free fruit food, and you could just put them anywhere that you don't have much growing and you probably don't really want to be bothered with, and just let them go. So I did start an elderberry here, but I'm going to move that. It's just not the spot for it. Now this is a fail. This again was very stony. I did put compost into it and things were growing really well. These were fava beans that were going super well. Then the aphids moved in the thousands, and this is where I tried to do the natural thing, hose them off. They just kept on coming back. We've got a lot of ant issues here too. Where you've got lots of ants, you're going to have aphids having a ball. So they eventually got to them, so they're still here. And I'm not seeing any signs of the ladybirds yet. So they've had a field day. Didn't work. I've got a few lettuces trying to grow up through there. So I'm going to cut these down rather than feed them back to the garden here, because it's still got, lots of aphids on it. I'm going to feed it to the chooks, and then I'll plant something else in here, probably some, I don't know, something lower to the ground, maybe, not sure, but I'll plant into here. This garden is the bed that took years to get anything to grow in it. It's under gum trees. The gum trees were suppressing everything, but we've managed to start getting things going, only because we put wood chips down. They eventually started to break down and life started to come. Now what I've done is just started to plant edibles and things in the border, just one, like keeping them together and babying that with water and that, and the rest I neglect. So at the back it doesn't get water, but the daisies keep growing and covering the soil, and I'm only having to, with limited water, only having to water so much of it. Again, see, the walking Egyptian onions are happy. They're okay. I've got chives in here, flower going to seed, and an elderberry. The rest are roses, but there is quite a few walking Egyptian onions in here now. Not much else. I've got a fig in that gap that has grown slowly. It's starting to look a bit happier now. But this is pretty much all this is at the moment. Okay, we're now in one of the most feral parts of my urban food forest. And it's a food forest more from weeds than anything else, but we do have some things growing here. I just have to wait for the neighbour's dogs to stop barking, the car at the front to go away, and the other neighbour to stop talking. So you definitely can tell it's an urban setting. Now over here again, the baby tops started with the walking Egyptian onions. I put them everywhere. I save them. I want to multiply them. Everyone wants them too, so the more I've got, the more I can share or swap. I've put some violets in for colour and to cover some ground, and I threw some green manure radishes along here. Now this area has had, because it was again really compacted, and lots of soil. So it was a walkway that was never meant to be a garden. It's only about a couple of metres wide, if that, metre and a half maybe. Because it's only narrow too with the fences, and it doesn't get a lot of sun in here, so I wasn't sure if anything would grow here. The choco has struggled. I'm not sure. I'm thinking I might have to move it. It was looking good, then it wasn't, then it was looking good a few weeks ago, and now I can't, past couple of days, and I don't know even if that's the fluctuation of weather. We had really 30s and then plummeted down to 10. You know, the change of weather. I don't know if it could cope with that. So in this area, it's very shaded. It's got a native from next door, this beautiful bottle brush, and it's happily feeding the native birds and the beautiful honey eaters, which I can see outside my windows. I just love them. But because of that shade, I think this area is going to be very selective in what grows here. So I'll probably reserve it for things like spinach, which are tricky to grow in the sun. Mine always seems to bolt or struggle. So I'm going to see if I can grow things like that, or even throw a pumpkin or two in here and see if they'll be happy to sprawl along this alleyway. At the moment, it's got the green manure. I'm calling it green manure. It's radishes that I've sown in here just to put something in here. And it also, months ago, I dug a trench and put buckets of kitchen scraps in it, buried it, put mulch over it, so it would really inject a lot of nutrients into this area that was evidently starved of nutrients. And as you can see by the weeds, who are incredibly happy, these are all weeds in here, I'd say it's working. So they've grown, but I'll pull them up and I'll drop them. Before they go to seed. Some of them are trying to now, and I'll drop them on there and put all those back into the soil too. So we're building this area up rather than planting it. And some of the kitchen scraps are growing. We've got potatoes. That one's green because it's getting light, but potatoes coming up from there, so free food. And I have got a native nitrogen fixing tree that was here when we moved, quite a substantial tree here, and so we've moved the worms here. The worms were under the ornamental pear that we cut back, so they need to be somewhere shaded, so they're protected with the fence and the tree here, and they are going so well. They are so happy. I didn't know if the poor little things would survive in this plastic system, but I've been able to grow worms like nobody. They're doing so well, and they're much easier to do. So I'll share that in a separate video, and show you what I did and how easy that is to do without getting too technical. Canna lilies for chop and drop. They were growing like a weed from the back neighbour under my fence in the chook house. Chooks they keep scratching, so it doesn't have a chance to grow back now. So I've put them up here in an area that I don't care about, right near the tree, just to have an understory here, keep out the weeds again, and to chop and drop, to use as food for the ground. Free food, easy to grow. And you don't see this on videos very often, but am I the only gardener that has these kind of messes? I bet you I'm not. All this needs to be cleaned up, but I try and keep that kind of thing in a group. And so there's neat areas and there's not so neat areas, because weeds do get away from you. I've pulled out a heap the other day, just left them in a pile here to pretty much mulch on the spot. I did the same with this, and then started planting into it through some pockets of decent soil put a few things in, like garlic. That's red garlic in there. Some of them got dug out by the chooks and are struggling or gone, but a couple survived. Bit of flowers, and the kale looks happy. The kale and oregano, or as my US friends say, oregano. That looks very, very happy. Much happier in the garden than in a pot. This kale is dealing with pests. It's not happy at all. I've got aloe vera at the back there, and these were under the eaves, neglected and died. So we'll just pass on by. Now over this part of the alley, this was a successful growing area. Here it was better soil, and it was soil, not lots of gravel. I mulched it. I planted asparagus in it, which most of them are pretty happy. And while I waited for the asparagus to grow, I planted tomatoes in here. Didn't expect in the alleyway that was once covered with a massive vine. We had jasmine on the left side here, and it just smothered the light. The tomatoes grew and fruited and gave us lots. I planted them earlier than most people do. They were happy. We ate tomatoes. I preserved tomatoes, so you just don't know. Now, I've moved a kale there the other day, pulled some weeds and just dropped them around the kale as mulch. Again, they're dropped weeds around the perennial leeks, which took a long time to come up. I bought them as little bulbs from a lady, I can't remember if it was either Marketplace or eBay, and I think it might have been, I can't remember. But anyhow, they took forever, and I thought they weren't going to grow. I thought, these aren't too good. But they have, and now they've come up, they've got babies. Lots of babies there. So these perennial leeks, and we love anything perennial. The more perennials you got, the more permanent food you got. And that is a Jerusalem artichoke, because I harvested some but not all. I put them in containers to be on the safe side. So this season I have to decide what I'm going to plant in between the look at the asparagus now. This only just happened. Look how thick. This is very happy. And here's a spear. Look. See? And this is how thick my spear is. That's because I left them, like they say, when they're young, don't pick them. Let them go. Let them grow these beautiful ferns. The ferns reach out to the sun, take in the nutrients, put it back into the roots, and you grow thicker and thicker and better plants. So I was disciplined. I held back, and is that one that's broken off? Oh, that could even be eaten, that one. That's broken off. I might have done that when I was weeding, maybe. Yeah, so we're going to have asparagus for years to come. I put about 8 plants in, and that's going to be plenty for us. So yeah, I chopped and dropped, or not chopped and dropped, pulled and dropped the weeds around the asparagus plants, catching up with the weeding. There are some bare parts here. I will plant into there, but I want to focus on getting some ground cover plants like the herbs and low growing stuff in here to fill in all these gaps. The problem with some creepers like jasmine, you see it's come across the path, it was growing there, it comes underneath here and is persistently trying to grow here, which I keep pulling to try and exhaust it, and I might even put some boiling water over it or something, but it keeps trying to grow, and being spring, it's really trying to survive. Now, we planted banana passion fruit in its place, which has taken off, but I'm thinking of pulling that out too, because we could have the same problem. I've just made the same mistake twice, and put that in a big tub and grow it maybe over the chook shed or something. So the kale is fighting the bugs, but growing. So I might even chop that, feed it to the chooks, not the whole thing, just the top. And we need flowers for the insects, so violets have gone in there. Hello girls. That's their favourite words. When I say hello girls, it means a treat usually. What's she going to get us? Or is she going to let us out to play? Hello beautiful girls. Look how healthy you are. Look how big you are. Who's dropping the big double yoga? Eh? My chooks are huge. Like, some of them are really big. Like the one over there on the left, behind between the pole and that. She's huge. We had little babies come in, and they were so vicious to them, we had to separate them. And they grew up and they're bigger than the others, so they're not bullied anymore. And this is the sorrel in a half attempt at a hugelkultur bed using dropped banana trunks and not a great deal of soil, just pockets of soil, and that has just taken off. It's perennial, which is great. I'm not keen on it. My grandson likes it. He has a little bit of it, but it is a plant. You've got to watch how much you eat of it, because it's got the acid oxalic acid in it. So you're meant to cook it, so you don't eat a lot of it. But the chooks love it. You can see when they come out, that's why there's all holes in it. That's not a bug. That's my chooks having a good old peck. When it was young, they'd peck it down to just about nothing, and it would just grow again. But now it's older, they have a good forage, and I've got more for them to eat. They have a good forage and have just a bit. And I throw it into them when they're in there. And also in this garden I've got a tropical, a babaco, and look. It's got fruit, or it's getting fruit. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can see 4 on it. And it's not even a metre high yet. And I got one of these because I saw Melbourne Food Forest channel. She had a big one in her Melbourne backyard, and so I thought, well, if she can grow it, I might be able to have one. And it's meant to give you a lot of food, a lot of fruit, big fruit, champagne tasting fruit without the alcohol. And so in it went, and I've got an understory of lemon balm, which is absolutely beautiful in salads. Like, it's just gorgeous in salads. It's one of my favourite herbs now, and very healthy. It's medicinal, very healthy for you to eat. And in there is one of my original comfreys that I've propagated from, which the chooks also love. And this, my friends, is what the doorway looks like. Because when they get out, they head straight for there, have a good old peck, and then move on. And so not a lot has been able to grow there. Okay, now on this fence line over here, we've got my weed tea, which I must start using because it just would be like liquid gold now. A comfrey there that struggled a bit and has bounced up now. I've got this little water thing for the birds that does, when the sun comes out, that little fountain starts moving. And under a beautiful silver birch. I'll show you the chook set up one day too, because that's really convenient the way we've set that up. Now these are 2 banana pups that we moved here, and you can see, I'll show you the difference. This is mulched They still get a lot of water here, but this isn't anywhere near as big as the other one. But it does get quite a bit of water. So the difference in water uptake does make a big difference with the banana. It could be to the position, because these things can make a big difference. The other one probably has a bit more shelter than these two, although these two technically would have more sun, and they like heat. But this is the thing, when I plant now, this is what I've tried to do. I've tried to mix up my planting, not plant things in all together, like all my bananas together or all my peas together, whatever. I move them around the garden and try different spots, and then you get to know what likes what spot. And it's hit and miss, but you get some really nice surprises. Over here is the pots of Jerusalem artichokes, which grew so well. Honestly, they grow so much food. They're so worth growing, but they can be really invasive. So if you had a really huge lot of land, like I'm only in a modest suburban block, if you had a lot of land and had plenty of room, you know, areas that you'll never use up or whatever, you could grow them in the ground and let them just go, and you would just have tons and tons of food. And they're delicious. They're just if you think potato, think Jerusalem artichokes, because you pretty much can do all that you can do. Cook them the same, taste very, very much the same or similar. They're really nice. They do have an effect on some people though. They do create gas. So some people get wind or chronic wind. So you've just got to ease yourself into, acclimatise yourself to eating them. And some people are affected more than others. I ate them and they seemed to be okay. I didn't gorge on them. I was a bit careful, but I just found them fine. So yeah, totally worth it. And they're beautiful. They're like having bunches of sunflowers, smaller, and they grow huge. They even in a small pot, they can grow meters tall, 2-3 meters tall. So these have just sprung up again. Now I didn't harvest these. I just didn't have the chance. So I've just left them in there. They're going to be pot bound, guaranteed. Like, I'm just looking at those plants. I put about 3 or 4 little pieces in there last season. This will be full. I really need to probably tip this into it, or put it into a bigger, much bigger tub, and give them some room to expand. So that job's on the list. This is some walking Egyptian... No, sorry. This is walking stick kale. Walking stick kale grows up like a tree. This one is doing the best. I've got a few, some in pots. This is in the ground. Things in the ground usually do better than in pots or, those plastic setups and stuff. This is going beautifully now. We've hit spring, got a bit of rain, and it's just very happy. It's not growing straight. I probably need to start thinking about slowly moving it up onto a stake. Very generous plant. Chooks like it. I bust off a leaf now and then for them. Plenty of kale, and it's, again, perennial. It just keeps growing. So I got those seeds from someone in Tassie. So I thought, if it grows in Tassie, it'll grow here. And it has. So... This was another bed that's, I fought the weeds, and I haven't struggled to grow stuff in it, and it just obviously needs time and more weed control, but we did manage on the corner where I was growing tomatoes successfully to grow a couple of brassicas. My brassicas have struggled with pests. The chooks got out and ate all my young ones. So we've caged a couple that they didn't get to. And it looks like we're finally getting little purple cauliflowers. Can I get in there? Can we get some light? Come on. Cauliflowers. But look who's come out to play. Squash. Look at this. There's another one. Let's just take them off. I'm not going to squash them. I'm going to give them to the chooks because they love these treats. Okay, who's going to be the lucky one? I could only find 2. Go! Oh, you're lucky. I threw him a grub yesterday and one took off the whole lot of them of Jason. If there was a big chase, she couldn't find a place to stop and eat it. Okay, this bed we had growing brassicas in originally. You can see the stumps here, in here. That is a perennial sprouting broccoli, but I've cut them right back and I've just left a couple there. You can see it's actually trying to sprout up. And I've made way for other vegetables. I ate a lot of endive the first season. A lot of people don't like it because it has a bit of a bitter taste, but I don't mind it. If you've got mayo in your and a bit of mustard or something in your salad, I don't really notice it that much. And they create a lot of food. Keep taking from the side, they keep growing for months. You just get a lot of food out of that. That's, they just keep going. So I let one of the plants go to seed over there, and I collected some seed, but I sprinkled some, and these are the volunteers. And that's pretty much as I had planted last time, and it kept me in salads for a long, long time. My husband's not keen on it, but I eat it. These are already trying to bolt though, so I don't know. I might have to throw some more in. And so I'm trying to let some things go to seed. So that's a radish going to seed here. The radish, because it's fallen over this way, is sheltering my blueberries. Like I was talking to you before, I had some weeds in there that I pulled out yesterday, and a pot of cuttings, locust cuttings that are ready to pot up, just sitting in the back of there. And that kind of disguised it. Obviously, I've still got blueberries, where by now birds would have just knocked them all off. So I had a cage around it last year. Wire cage to try and stop them. And again in here I've got some currants, which I'm hoping all of this will disguise that, camouflage it. And I might get some currants, because the currants do get knocked off. Forever faithful rhubarb, which gives us so much rhubarb, but I will eventually move that out of here too, because it doesn't need to be taking up space in my raised bed. It could go anywhere. This, I don't know if this is actually edible or not. I grew a funky succulent lettuce, but the picture, the leaves are different. So I don't know if it's still, in the family of that plant, or this is a weed. So I'm too scared to eat any of it until I find out. But it's exactly where I planted it, the seed or seeds, and I've never seen this anywhere else in my garden. So it's not like, oh well, I've got that growing over there and there, it's probably a weed. So I'm not sure. So I need to find out. That's one question. And as you're learning new plants and that, you don't know all these things. So some fails here. So all these little spaces, little gaps, now they've started my seeds for spring. Now I need to fill them all up, get rid of all this open soil. This beautiful thing, so I'm assuming that's a cos lettuce, has flown down from my balcony. The seed, which I let go to seed and I collected some of them, it's flown down and fallen in this pot and grown. And that is what I love most about the vegetable garden, when they just grow themselves. My very struggling bacon avocado. I don't know. It struggled. It was pot bound. I hadn't potted up a little while ago. I put it in this beautiful, nourishing soil in this pot and sunk it into the garden so the worms could get up in it and everything, and planted some garlic around it. But it is in full sun and it's not, I don't know. We'll see. So yesterday I planted seedlings that I thought I'd lost most of them, but some survived. This I'm very excited to have in my garden, and I've planted, I don't know, a dozen of them. They grow apparently to about 1 foot high and wide at least, and it's salad burnet, and it is really tasty. It tastes like cucumber. It's really refreshing. So that's going to be yum in my salads. I eat a lot of salad. So I've planted them everywhere. And beetroot, they're all in the cell trays that were just thrown in the garden when we went away because I couldn't look after them, and they survived. So they've got a home yesterday too. And what else we got? And these were this big in these poor little cell trays, these poor little beetroots. So they're getting a chance. Oh no, it's not beetroot. No, I think it's chard, or it might be rainbow chard or some sort of silver beet actually. This one is trying to go to seed, but I threw them in. Who knows? You never know. Just give them a chance. My little yellow carrots are getting bigger. And that is my celery that I grew from the base of a celery from the shop. So that is working. And there's not much at the back there. Got a few chives there, pineapple sage, which I cut back to about 1/4 of its size yesterday, and some alyssum, which is very pretty in the garden, and all of these gaps need filling. Broad beans happily growing on the side but falling over with our winds. Some happier than others. I'm still getting issues though, look. It's because I've kind of done this half attempt to hold them up, and they're not getting enough air, I'd say. Airflow. So we're starting to see little specks. So I'll start picking them. I don't hold out much hope for greatness, but they're still putting nitrogen in the soil, and that's a mixed bag in there. Carrots, and I forget what I planted in there, but at the back is my special pepino. The pepino has several fruits on it. However, I do have mice getting to them. Oh no, have they started taking them already? Oh, there was more on this yesterday. I'm pretty sure I did move it, but I think something's taking them. I might have to grow this on my veranda. I had 2 fruit on it last time at fruit, and they grew really big, and they were underneath there, and then I saw something gnawing at it, and bam. Oh no, there they are. Oh no, nothing's got these so far. Something's had a crack though, look. It's had a crack at it. I want to try them. I want them to get past the pests. And there's a fig growing in there. There. And a chilli. This is near the heating unit. And that's Vietnamese mint, which I'm going to have to dig up because it's just as bad as any other mint. It's just going nuts. Chopped it all back yesterday, threw it over there to cover the ground. Marjoram. This is where we took our bananas from, and 2 have sprouted back. At any time I can cut them back, just throw it in the chook pan. Oh, what was this called? Corn salad. Corn salad. Planted those seeds, they're growing okay. More elephant garlic. This, look how big. Elephant garlic. And what else? Not much else in here. Again, space ready to fill. Yesterday, again, those seedlings I was trying to save. Oh, I forget what that was. It's a brassica. Was that a Brussels sprout maybe? No, it's a brassica. Beetroots. I'm going to grow some cucumber in here, I think, this year. Throw cucumber in the centre. And over here, I saved a solitary statice, put it in a pot, and rescued some garlic chives, a hollyhock. Hey, bug, get off my hollyhock. You, no way. And a fennel. See the thickness of this fennel? That was growing this really thin cell tray, poor thing. Or trying to grow. This is where I started my walking Egyptian onions, and then I've taken off these plants and put them everywhere else and left one in each of its place to continue growing on. And I don't know if all of them have, or some of them might have been over sheltered in there, but most of them I think have. Boysenberry. Lots of boysenberry finally. I've got mint in pots growing under here. New Zealand spinach, warrigal spinach. My apple. There's 2 apples on here. Seeing if it survives a problem it had last year. That's a red cabbage that I grew from the base of a cabbage, a shop cabbage. And stuff in pots, just herbs. There's a rosemary in the ground there, bananas in pots that are probably pot bound, and lots of work to be done in here. An invasive grass area all the way through here. I gave up on that. All this is growing into this garden. Gave up on that. Oh, hello bird. Hello beautiful. Yeah, so this needs to be, I don't know, I need to really spend some time in there. And the Russell lupins, yay, first time I've grown them. Didn't think they grew, but they have. I've got one here and one on the other side growing. Russell lupins, it's a yellow raspberry in a pot there that struggled and now growing. I've got apple mint here in a pot with, I think there's lemon balm in there too, and my mulberry. And this is a dwarf red, I think, mulberry. Oh, hello. Oh, that might not be the good ladybird. I don't think that's the good ladybird. I think that's a bad ladybird. That's got too many spots. Don't want you, I want the other ones. I think that's the bad one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I don't know. I had mulberries on here. Oh, that's a good ladybird. Here, look at this. You've got 2 different ladybirds on the one plant. Now, let me show you that one, that yellow one. Hang on. Come on, zoom. There we go. See that yellow one? Yellow and black one? They like the mould, sooty mould. They'll eat mould. Okay, so I had berries on it. Something ate it. I wonder if it's that ladybird that ate it. Don't know. Something's eaten the berries. So I'm yet to see berries off my mulberries. Okay, fairly new bed. This is put this in before Christmas, I think. As you can see, more sorrel growing here for the Chooki's delight. I'm going to use this now. I'm thinking the sorrel will be good as a border control. If I plant it along borders of the garden, it'll probably keep a lot of the grasses out. And it might stop the chooks going further the border. So this area there's all the salad burnet I've planted over here, a hollyhock. What did I have it? Oh, that's a raspberry I don't think survived. Ginger that I've moved here yesterday. A volunteer, I'm pretty sure that's parsley. And I put the Brussels sprout seedling, the one surviving Brussels sprout seedling in there. A beautiful grape, I bought 2 and I went over to Springvale, I think, to get them. And they're those beautiful long juicy grapes, and I bought 2 and my husband broke one, not realising it was where it was. Thought it was dead, gave up on it, almost gave up on it, threw in a pot, went, look, I'll just put it in a pot. If it doesn't survive, it doesn't survive. It probably won't, but look, it's got green on it, so the thing's going to live. This is one of my favourite flowers. I can't eat it, but I've got 2 different coloured penny roses. I mean, who doesn't love penny roses? This pot was under the lemon tree and I've moved it over here now. It's got a walking stick kale in it that's actually going to seed. I think it's walking stick kale in that. And I do have to look, like I document just about everything I plant, where I planted it in a book, but I'd have to go through back through pages to really work out what's what, which sometimes I sit down and work that out now, but I haven't before a video worked out everything. So that's apple mint in there, and I've moved it over here, and that grew a Cape gooseberry in there. I tried to grow them in the bed that has the rhubarb without success, I thought. Then I found them in other areas of my garden, so I don't know if I've brought it in from plants from somebody else's garden, but anyhow, that grew Cape gooseberries underneath the lemon tree, but it struggled underneath there, and then the seeds have dropped in that pot and under the lemon tree. So I've moved this over here. Also, there was one growing over there, so they may pop up there, and they may grow back in that pot. But because I've moved the pot, hopefully I'll have them there and underneath this lemon tree, which nothing much is growing under there. I have moved a vine, a yam in there, which I don't know if they're going to survive, but I've put them in there. And this hugelkultur bed, the bananas have just kept growing. They were meant to be rotted down to create a garden, but I have this little forest of bananas, which I don't plan to keep. I might keep 1, 2, 3 at the most, but the rest I will use for chop and drop. The chooks actually like the leaves, but they will be used to feed the soil. But at the moment, again, I'm letting them grow just because nothing else is not much else is in there at the moment. It keeps the soil cool until I'm ready. That is a strawberry guava. That is going to need these gone too to get some sun. But I started a rhubarb under there. A couple of rhubarbs. And at the back, you can't really, hang on, let me see if I can get in. My shoes are getting wet. I should have worn my gumboots. Yukon. And I haven't harvested it. I need to harvest it probably, but you can just leave them in and let them keep growing. So that can take up that back corner with food. There's the other one. That struggled, but is still growing. So I didn't expect a lot to grow in this until this bed started to rot down. But things, once you get a bit of a canopy going and the soil covered, you know, green stuff rotting in. I haven't thrown any special fertilisers on it. I am going to put some worm tea on it. But eventually things start growing. So, but again, it's another bed that I have trouble with the grass. My lemon tree, which I cut back severely hard, like brutally, is full of flowers. And there's fruit. Fruit started. This gets a lot of butterflies too. Summer, end of spring, summer. The swallowtail butterflies, just so pretty. They love this tree. I'll just show you this. I'll show you this banana. See that? That was kind of the end of the banana. We threw it in here, and it's just rooted down, and it's trying to keep living. So I just think grass. They're just like grass. Even in Melbourne. I think Melbourne's not meant to grow bananas. A lot of people are. Okay, so there is another garden area. It's in a bit of a mess, but I'll show that another time because time's ticking and we've been on here for a bit. But to finish off, I just want to show you this elderberry. So you saw the other two in the video were tiny. This one was sitting here amongst a climbing pumpkin that I planted too late, so I didn't get any pumpkins on it. But amongst other foliage, and down the back in this pot, and it did really well. So well, in fact, we got quite a bit of elderberry growing there. Now I wanted to put one in the chicken house because the chickens will love it. I'll give them some shade, and because this is taken off and it's so strong, I'm going to take part of this at least for them, pop it in their cage and just put a little bit of a wire protection around it, and they'll be able to enjoy the dropping berries and probably jump up and grab a few leaves now and then, and that will be nice and healthy for them. But how crazy is that it's grown so well in that pot? And usually the containers do worse usually, but it must be just in a really nice spot for it here. Very happy, very, very happy. Oh, the sun's out now. The sun's really out now. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'm trying to get some shade here. That tour. I started with very little. I have invested a bit of money into it, but I have done a lot of this by seeds, recycling, getting stuff free, using plants to mulch, or when we've cut back stuff, creating mulch out of that. So look, I think my garden, even though it's not perfect, it's full of life in a very short time, and I'm hoping it will encourage others that if you don't have a lot of resources, there's still a lot you can do. And plants are just so amazing. They grow and multiply, and as you saw in the video, some of them volunteer up new plants next to you without having to do anything, and those plants are usually much stronger, and it's just, and it's therapeutic. It's really, really fun. So I hope you enjoyed that, and please remember to, do the like, subscribe, all of that, and join me for the next video. And I'll catch you next time. I'm off to plant some seeds.